Congress has been making very slow progress on most things, on pretty much everything. They've been working towards healthcare, but here, Politico's reporting that Republicans are going frustrated as their to-do list grows. First of all, I just love that, right? I love how they're getting frustrated about their to-do list growing. I mean, shouldn't you always have a long to-do list as a member of Congress, as a part when you're in government? Shouldn't you always have a long to-do list? Because there are so many issues that you need to address. Shouldn't you always have a long to-do list? So why is the list growing right now? And I also find it hilarious that they're complaining about how much they, how they're running out of time. Well, it's really pretty much up to them. It's their fault that they didn't get anything done, because they were wasting their time the entire time talking about Russia and not talking about actual things that people care about. And when they would push for legislation, it was for stuff that no one wanted, like Russia's sanctions. Like, why are you wasting your time getting Russia sanctions when you could be pushing for healthcare or tax reform or infrastructure or, even immigration? Immigration is one of those things that even if we have like the centrist Republicans, the moderate ones, even they should be able to get on board for immigration bills and for the border wall. But apparently the party has just gotten so out of touch with the base that they can't even agree on immigration and on the border, which is just it's just an embarrassment. It's just a total embarrassment. So anyway, in the article here it says, during an emergency White House meeting with Senate Republicans on Tuesday, Senator Tom Cotton felt compelled to make a last-ditch attempt to salvage the stalled Obamacare replacement. He said, "You're too weak to do what you should do," Cotton told his colleagues, according to sources familiar with the exchange. You're too weak to do what you should do. I love that quote, and it's something that should be said more often, because they are too weak. But I'm afraid he might be talking about the wrong thing here. See, I'm one of the people who will say that this healthcare bill that they've been trying to push through is rushed. Now, I think that it can be a good thing as long as they actually go through the process and have amendments and have a debate. But there's not been much in the way of that. I mean, they came out with the bill publicly. About like what, Monday? That was when they came out with the bill and they made it public. And then they were going to have a vote like yesterday. That wasn't going to happen. That was never going to happen. And anyone who thought it was going to happen, well, that's just not realistic at all. That's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's not a thing. It's not possible. But for some reason, people were apparently surprised that the vote wasn't going to take place yesterday. And even, on Monday, when I first heard that they were going to do a vote, when they were going to, I was the one who said, like, wow, that's weird. I don't know why they're going so early. They haven't done much in the way of the process. So I was the one that said, yeah, that's strange. That doesn't make much sense to me. But then when they decided that they weren't going to have the vote on that day, that was apparently a big surprise to everybody. Which it shouldn't have been, because it was a dumb idea in the first place to have a vote so early on. So they're complaining about healthcare. If they, he's saying that they're too weak, and I agree that they're too weak. The thing about them being weak, though, is that probably your definition of weak and my definition of weak is different. See, when it comes to passing legislation, they actually do a somewhat good job if they care enough about it. But the thing is, they don't have the backbone to care about the right things. Could you imagine where we would be right now if they cared as much about infrastructure as they did about Russia sanctions? They passed Russia sanctions, immediately. 1 week it was like, okay, we got Russia sanctions, and then they just passed it. They immediately. Because when they actually care about things, they can get it passed as soon as they want, right? because they're actually good at playing politics when it's their interests. But when it's our interests, and when it's stuff that the base wants, they don't care at all. They don't care at all. So they don't put in any effort to try and pass any of these things, even though they're so popular. They don't care. They don't care at all. Why would they care, right? Exactly. So it's just such a sad thing to see. Well, here it says, as the House and Senate prepare to depart Thursday for a week-long July 4th recess, they face a daunting to-do list upon their return: an unfinished health care bill in the Senate, an ugly budget fight in the House, and difficult votes to raise the debt ceiling and fund the government. Not to mention tax reform and infrastructure, which are still in the earliest stages of being developed. Why are these still in the early stages? Is what I want to know. How come you didn't get working on this stuff immediately in January? How come you didn't start working on this stuff immediately? Why the big wait? Why the big wait? Why is it now that it's what, June, that they're saying that, oh yeah, this stuff is in the early stages? You should have been working on this stuff from the beginning. But the thing is, when it comes to Congress, they don't care about that kind of stuff. They don't care about the actual things that they were voted in to do. Like, they were voted in to stand with the president, right? And they haven't done that whatsoever. They have not done that at all. They said, it was yesterday that I covered that one of them said, oh yeah, no, yeah, we could get the president in here to, help us out with the healthcare bill, but he just doesn't get us any votes. He's not gonna do anything for us. Now, could you imagine if that was the other way around, and if you had Democrats saying, oh yeah, no, we could get Obama down here, but he's not gonna get us any votes. He's just not he's not popular. It's all right. Because the thing is, with Obama, you had this sort of like fake populism, and this, and you had real elitism in Congress. So they meshed, though, because Obama's populism was fake and he was actually an elitist. So they got along well, and they were able to work together well. When it comes to Trump, though, he's just not, this just goes to show that he's a real populist, right? People will go ahead, people on the left, and they will question whether or not he's a real populist. And what I gotta say to that is just that, look at how he's treated by the whole establishment, right? And then I even saw a claim being made by Kyle Kulinski, and he was like, oh yeah, no, he's loved by the establishment now. He's loved by the Who is the establishment to you? Is it Congress? He's not loved by Congress. Is it the media? He's sure as I'm not loved by the media. That's not a thing at all. The media's just gotten more and more hostile every single day. So I don't know. And Congress, I mean, they're getting hostile. I mean, Lindsey Graham, he got a bill through where it was like, oh yeah, no, we've taken away the president's power to weaken up sanctions. Like, since when has that ever been a thing? Since when have you ever had a Congress that's like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and block the president from making this policy. We're just gonna block him, even though it's a policy that makes sense because the sanctions were put in place, and then there was nothing done with them. They just sat there. You're supposed to use sanctions as a tool for diplomacy. You're supposed to use sanctions to get a party to the table by sort of, forcing them to, by giving them sanctions. But then we sanctioned Russia over Crimea. And then nothing happened. There was no negotiation. There was no diplomacy. We just sanctioned, and then that was it. And then with the Russia hacking, with Obama passed the new sanctions, which, how are you going to pass sanctions on somebody when you can't even prove that they did anything? How are you going to do that? You can't. You don't. No one has any proof of Russian interference. But you know what? They just passed sanctions anyway. They don't care. They don't care at all. And then, do you think that there was ever negotiations after that? that Obama passed the sanctions and then tried to use that to get them to the table? Of course not. There's been any notion, even the notion of having relations with Russia, of talking to Russian officials, that to the Democrats and to the establishment, that's like Russia collusion right there. They go after, people like Mike Flynn, like, oh my god, these people, like all these associates of Trump are, they met with a Russian official. Collusion. Because it was in their mind, right? In their mind, because, Congress is filled with, like a whole bunch of old people. People who grew up in the 1980s, not grew up in the 1980s, but people who grew up during the Cold War, and they grew up with this whole mindset of like, oh yeah, Russia, greatest enemy of America, greatest enemy of all time, right? The greatest evil, the evil empire on the world, right? That's like how they grew up. That was their way of thinking. So now the Cold War's over, and they just haven't really gotten through. That just hasn't really gotten through their heads, I mean, except for Democrats, right? Because with Democrats, at least they were at one point right on Russia. In 2012, Mitt Romney, because Mitt Romney is also out of touch. Mitt Romney said that, oh yeah, Russia is our greatest foe, the greatest geopolitical foe. And Obama and all the Democrats, they all laughed at him. And they said, hey, Mitt Romney, it's not the 1980s anymore. Cold War's over. And that was right of them to say. They were right to say that. But what happened? Now, recently, you had John McCain say the exact same thing. He was like, oh yeah, Russia is our greatest geopolitical foe. They're a greater threat than ISIS. Which is a ridiculous thing to say. And then Democrats, they just heaped the praise on them. They heaped the praise. They give them all sorts of applause. They said, oh my god, John McCain is a real Republican. We need more people like John McCain to take a brave stand against Russia. It's not brave. It's like the default position in Washington right now. It's not brave. It's conforming. That's not brave. There's no bravery in saying, oh yeah, Russia's our greatest foe, because that's just the default position of everyone in DC. Like, because you have Trump who goes against it, and suddenly now there's a big witch hunt against him, because like, oh my god, you are going to meet with Vladimir Putin, and you won't even murder him right there? Russian puppet. I can't believe it. Russian puppet. Putin agent. Ugh. Working for the KGB all over again. Because these people, they don't have anything going on in their heads, except for, Russia's bad because, the 1980s apparently just never ended. And in the case of a lot of senators and congressmen, the 1980s did never end. Because you have people like Ted Cruz and, Rand Paul, who still think that it's the 1980s. And they still think that the way to win elections is to be centrist on social issues and like this really weird like ultra free market, conservative libertarian on economics. They think that that's how you be. I think that that's how you be populist, right? They think that's populist. I mean, that's embarrassing. And I hate all of the articles and how everyone always says, oh, Ted Cruz and the Tea Party, the hardliners, the real conservatives in the party. No, the real hardliners are people like Trump, right? Not Ted Cruz, not Rand Paul. That's a faction that's just so out of touch and so outdated that they don't have any support. I mean, outside of what? I mean, they obviously have some support from their constituents, but everywhere else, I'm not seeing anything. So it's just, so what we have now is we have a Congress that's been wasting all of their time, and now they're panicking because they're running out of time, and now they're realizing it, and they're saying, oh my god, we've done nothing. We haven't done a thing. And they're right, they haven't done a thing. They put out a 200-day plan at the beginning. They said, alright, here it is. This is the 200-day plan. And in these 200 days, were going to get so much stuff done, right? They had it's very ambitious plan. And everyone thought, oh, it's such a great thing. I can't wait to see this plan in action. And then you know what happened? The plan was just completely ignored. They did nothing with the plan. The plan is useless. I mean, 200 days are almost over at this point. I mean, they're almost over. And what have you guys done? Supreme Court, okay, good. You've done the House healthcare bill. That passed, okay. It's not a good bill though, but alright, go ahead. What else? Oh, they've done some reforms to the VA, okay, good. What else have they done? All the work has been coming from the White House, pretty much. All the work when it comes to immigration and stuff like that has been coming from the White House, and he doesn't even have support from Congress. We should be having, if we actually had a party that could function like a real party, we would have Congress coming out in support of all these immigration bills that are these orders that are being passed by the president, right? That are being made. But we don't have any of that. We don't have any of that because you gotta be moderate. That's how it works, right? You gotta be moderate. You gotta be compassionate. You gotta reach out to the immigrants and all that by being for amnesty, right, Marco Rubio? Such a mess. But yeah. Anyway, what do we have? Let's see. Oh yeah, we have a quote from John McCain. Asked Wednesday for his sense of the Republican agenda, Senator John McCain said bluntly, "I don't know what it is." He ticked off the debt limit and government funding deadline as other hurdles to overcome in the coming months. He says, "We have to get all these issues sitting out there that we have no schedule for being resolved," McCain said. Now here's the thing. They go on to talk about the budget and how they're trying to avoid a government shutdown, right? When it comes to the government shutdown, what I want to say is if a government shutdown comes and it's because of whiny Democrats that just want to get what they want and they refuse to compromise on anything. You know what I say? I say let it happen. Just let the government shut down in that case, because then you can just blame it on them. That's what they did when you had Ted Cruz shutting the government down. They blamed him and they blamed the party, and it worked for them. So why can't we just do the same thing? That's the thing, because Republicans don't know how to play politics. They don't know how to fight effectively. So if there was a government shutdown and it was the fault of the Democrats, they probably wouldn't even say it. They would just blame themselves some way. Just like when you had the Scully shooting, when they should have blamed Democrats, but they blamed everyone. Oh, this is all of our faults for creating such a hostile environment. No, why can't you just go out there and name the problem and say, hey Democrats, get it together? That's the thing, because we have a party that's just so weak, and they don't know how to fight anything. They know how to fight when it comes to things that they care about, like, sanctions and internet privacy gutting for some reason. But when it comes to things that people actually care about, they're not even going to put up they're not going to put in any kind of effort. They're in the early stages of an infrastructure bill and tax reform. The early stages should have been in February, not now, in June. So it's embarrassing. I can only hope that things get quicker and that things speed up. Because if they don't, 2018 is going to be a bad year.